Hi guys, Ali Maxwell here. The following clip is a section taken from Zonal Marking, which is the podcast that I host alongside the Athletics tactics guru, Michael Cox. And you can listen to the rest of that weekly show for free wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, ad-free when you subscribe to The Athletic. Hope you enjoy it. We've mentioned them already, but Tom, Arsenal seem like a pretty good case study for this discussion. Arteta, like Pep Guardiola, feels very strongly about left-footed centre-backs, and that's something that we can see in the recruitment since he's been manager.
Yeah, so when Arteta joined Arsenal as their kind of head coach recently, I think one of the things that he demanded of the club was in January, I need a left-footed centre-back, and I think he definitely sold the powers that be at Arsenal on his vision of how he wants to play, and kind of in order to do that he needed a player with a left boot. So Pablo Mari was the first name in the door, and he was actually the first left-footed centre-back that Arsenal had kind of brought in since Thomas Vermaelen in 2009, which for me is quite a staggering amount of time between those two signings. And upon signing Mari, he kind of said, he balances what I want to do from the back line. And I think very much that echoes that, you can have more angles and areas that you can hit on the left side of the pitch with a naturally left-footed centre-back on that side. And then obviously recently you've seen Gabriel join from Lille, and he was man of the match on BT Sport the weekend, and he was very much lauded for his ability to play the ball forward and linking up really nicely with Kieran Tierney in this back three that Arteta was playing. So yeah, I think it's funny how much Arteta and Guardiola kind of shadow and reflect each other in the transfer market. I mean, Guardiola's just gone and signed Nathan Ake as well, and I don't necessarily think that the sole reason for that is to have two left-footed centre-backs. I think it's very much Aymeric Laporte has his injury problems. They lose a ton without him in the team, so they just need another left-footed centre-back.
Yeah, it's interesting as well with Arsenal that there was a period towards the end of last season where Arteta was playing Kolasinac as the left-sided centre-back, which I found slightly bizarre because I think of Kolasinac as, not even a full-back, as a wing-back, really, and someone who's good going forward rather than defensively. Obviously, he's got the physical build, I guess, to be a kind of central defender, but really it just felt like he really wanted a solid left-footer in there rather than, someone who's a more natural defender, but who didn't have that left foot to play the passes with.
I really enjoyed you basically summing it up, Premier League centre-back profiles earlier as those who can pass and those who do defending. I dare say that for Arsenal, a little from column A and a little from column B was necessary. And we can, I think now, based on what you've said, Tom, especially expect Arsenal's build-up play at the very least to improve. We saw an eye-catching move already in the opening game against Fulham, so that's something to keep an eye on. Coxie, who else needs a lefty in their team?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. There's you could argue Manchester United, I suppose, but I think they're an interesting case because Maguire's generally played to the left of the centre-back partnership. He played there at Leicester as well. And I think Maguire's different from the others because I wouldn't say he's a ball-playing centre-back. He's probably more of a ball-carrying centre-back. And there's something about kind of the angles that he takes the ball forward and the way he kind of protects the ball, where I think he's actually now quite accustomed to playing the left of the centre-back partnership. So yeah, while he's not left-footed, I'm not sure that's necessarily, I'm not sure he necessarily wants to play to the right of the centre-back partnership. And you can probably say the same about Virgil van Dijk as well, who, again, played left side of the two at Southampton, has done so for Liverpool, distributes the ball in a different way to a left-footer, but I think has a very particular type of pass over the top to Mane that kind of works with his right foot. So there's certainly sides that don't have a left-sided centre-back who have, got around the issue in different ways. But yeah, I think the managers who are really focused on possession play to an even greater extent than someone like Jurgen Klopp certainly want a left footer on the left of the two.
I think another team that would really benefit from having a left-footed centre-back in the squad would be Tottenham. Tottenham lost Jan Vertonghen to Benfica this summer. They've been playing Eric Dyer at the back now, and that seems to be his more natural position under Mourinho. And they just don't have a naturally left-footed player there. So I think for their build-up, it's not like Spurs are like a naturally build-up focused side, but it would definitely offer some balance there. And there are a few comments on Twitter and on the article afterwards essentially saying Ben Davies could slot in there. But again, kind of like Coxie's comment on Kolasinac, like just because a player has a left foot doesn't suddenly make them a perfect fit for doing everything else that a centre-back has to do. I think you have to kind of judge it a bit more holistically. And, just because Davies has a left foot doesn't make him the ideal candidate for that. But now it seems that, Sergio Reguilon could come in. There's the rumour that Gareth Bale could come back. I think that Spurs have reprioritised who they want to bring in this window.
I mean, Ben Davies, to me, strikes me as quite a particular type of player in the sense that he's definitely not a centre-back, and I don't really think he's an attacking fullback. But for the left side of a three, he really works. I mean, he's played that role for Wales, and the way that Mourinho has formatted his side has generally been almost like Davies is the left of the back three, with Aurier or now Doherty pushing on the other side. And I think that's maybe relevant to what we're talking about in the sense that, you know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we'd talk about how a side either plays with the back three or back four. And now I think things have become a lot more versatile. And I think that Spurs example is maybe slightly different from how other sides usually play, where it's often a holding midfielder dropping in to become the centre-back and the centre-back spreading. So if you're a left-sided centre-back that 10 years ago was just left centre in a four, it's now quite different if you're being asked to spread towards the touchlines and play almost as a conventional left-back. So I guess that's another reason why they've maybe grown in importance.
You've got Chelsea as well, who have got at least 5 centre-backs at the moment. Malang Sarr came in and is expected to be loaned out. He's the only left-footer out of the 6. I was leaving him out there, so 5 centre-back options this season. Rudiger, Zuma, Christensen, Tomori and Silva, all of them predominantly right-footed. I mean, it's nice, I think, that we're talking so positively about left footers, because of course left-handed people or left-sided people have historically been, you know, really discriminated against. Back in the old days, especially, centuries and centuries of prejudice against people who were left-handed, and the language lovers among the listeners will know, of course, that the Spanish word for left is sinistra, which comes from the Latin sinister, because they were considered evil, sinister beings. And thankfully we've got past that, and we're talking about how important they are on the football pitch. But Leicester City, Michael, they still don't trust him, do they? Because on Sunday, in their opening game, 11 right footers in this Leicester City side. Do you have to have a left footer somewhere on the pitch? That seems ridiculous, doesn't it?
Yeah, certainly not ideal. Of course, that was influenced by injuries and suspensions and unavailability. But yeah, it was quite obvious, I think, watching Leicester. I think James Justin, who is obviously a right back by trade, was out on that side and didn't look particularly comfortable. So yeah, I mean, it did harm their build-up play. And I think obviously Brendan Rodgers is the kind of manager who very much does want his side to play out from the back. He wants to stretch the play on both flanks. So yeah, maybe it wouldn't be an option as much for, I don't know, Sean Dyche. Sorry to keep on picking on Burnley, but you know, we are talking about playing out from the back, so they are the, you know, antithesis to that. But yeah, I thought Leicester's build-up play in the first half was quite slow, and obviously missed Chilwell, who was, I think, pretty good at playing that role for them.
Leicester, I think, are a really interesting one, because although they didn't have a kind of predominantly left-footed option in the team, they were also missing Johnny Evans as well, and Evans isn't he's not naturally left-footed, but looking at the data according to Football Ref, he uses his left foot, which is his weak foot, 27% of the time on all passes, which in the Premier League for centre-backs is in the top 5. So there is a case to say that you don't, obviously you don't have to have a naturally left-footed player, but there are certain players who do offer that level of. So although Leicester this weekend did start with 11 right footers, they were of course missing Johnny Evans at the back, and we did see a kind of makeshift centre back in the form of Wilfred Ndidi, who I don't think had an awful game. But Evans is one where, yes, he's predominantly right footed, but he's one of the kind of more comfortable players on his weak foot in the Premier League. So according to stats from data on FBref, he used his weak foot, which is obviously his left, 27% of the time on all passes, which in the Premier League last year was good enough for 5th amongst all centre-backs. So that kind of dual-footedness that he has is something that's useful in build-up. For Leicester, even though they don't have a strong left footer at the back there.
We have to talk about the England national team for just a second, because Michael, that last game was a tough watch, I think it's fair to say, and there are a number of different tactical reasons for that. I dare say at some point this season, before the Euros, we might take a look at various national teams and discuss their tactics and their strategies. That was a tough watch, though, the 0-0 draw. And again, 11 right footers, albeit it was thanks to injury problems, specifically to Chilwell and others. But we had a back three of Gomez, Cody and Dyer. none of whom particularly comfortable on their left side. And then in front of them, well, the wing-backs were Trent Alexander-Arnold on the right and Trippier playing on the wrong side, if you will, on the left, with Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips also sitting in front of the back three. It's fair to say that the build-up play was a tough watch. How much do you put down to this footedness that we're talking about?
Yeah, I think it was an issue, and it was almost a throwback to the kind of late 90s where the left-sided problem was, more of a problem in the midfield than the defence. But yeah, obviously things have shifted now in terms of the way teams play. You want a left-footer in a defensive position rather than necessarily high up on the wing where they tend to cut inside. Yeah, I think it did relate in part to the lack of a left-footer. That seemed to be... Well, it wasn't like Southgate had one in the squad. He didn't even consider calling up someone like Bukayo Saka, who... I don't think will become a left back in the long run, but has done really, really well there for Arsenal. I think he made his under-21 debut that same week, so maybe Southgate wanted to ease him into kind of the national team picture. But I thought without a good left-footed fullback, he was a real obvious option to do a job for a couple of games. So yeah, I don't think it's something that England have been particularly good at during Southgate's time. I mean, at the World Cup, when obviously they did very well to get to the semi-final stage, the left wing-back was actually Young, who obviously was right-footed and generally cutting inside, and there wasn't a left-footed option in the centre-backs either. So, yeah, it's not something that England are blessed with, and I think sometimes when you see someone like, for example, Tyrone Mings in the England picture, you do think that's probably because Southgate wants the option of a left footer rather than because he's necessarily at the level to be playing for England.